Привет, меня не зовут Сергей Галенкин, но вы слушаете подкаст сайта galenkin.com, посвященный E3. И мы впервые сыграли с Галенкиным в шпионов, ходили по выставке, ловили людей и просили их немножко прокомментировать текущую ситуацию. Не знаю, какое впечатление это произвело на Мишу, когда он сейчас монтировал. Миша, ты как там?
Мне понравилось.
Для первого раза сойдет, грубо говоря.
Да, для первого эксперимента все просто получилось очень даже неплохо. Надеюсь, мы не получим комментарии от вас в виде того, что «фу, это английский, как же мне это слушать», а все-таки прослушайте до конца и надеемся, что накомментируете что-нибудь интересного.
Мы попросили там, попробовали поговорить с ребятами про пиар, поговорили немножко про различные рынки, поймали директора студии CD.PL. И, в принципе, если такой формат достаточно интересен, то мы можем его ввести в оборот и где-нибудь раз в месяц разных людей отлавливать в Москве, там, в Калининграде, именно с диктофонами, и просить их на 5-10 минут прокомментировать то, что у них сейчас происходит. Мне кажется, что не все могут выбраться прямо на подкаст и дать нам 1,5 часа своего времени, и не всегда есть такие комментарии, которые там, можно через месяц, через два сделать. Иногда просто можно прям поймать кого-нибудь, там, например, с Канобу или еще откуда-то, и просто сказать: ребята, что у вас происходит? Так что вы просто можете сказать там да или нет в комментариях, а мы будем ориентироваться на то, насколько это было востребовано. Что еще вам сказать? Люди разные, общаются, все из них самостоятельные, никто из них не просил ничего согласовывать, что очень приятно, потому что это дает вам прям прямую речь от этих компаний. Ну вот, еще Галенкин с 3 различными цветными рубашками выставку впечатлил. Какие еще memorable news от выставки остались. И, конечно, борода ему идет. Вот.
Да, мы сделаем отдельный выпуск про E3, про впечатления Сергея и Сергея, потому что этот выпуск — это как бы такой тизер к тому, что там происходило. А я уверен, что ребята обязательно поделятся самым интересным и самым занимательным.
Мы туда же хотели включить наш Блиц с Орловским, Блиц с Прохоровым, где он рассказывает про новую игру 4A Games, и некий блиц, такой превьюшку с Артемом Близицким, который работал над The Last of Us в составе Naughty Dog. Мне кажется, вполне может нормально получиться выпуск такой, предваряющий окончание сезона. Когда оно там у нас произойдет, мы еще сами не знаем.
В общем, приятного прослушивания и встретимся в следующих выпусках.
Да, всем надеюсь, что вам там большинству из вас понравится. Кому не понравится, тоже пишите. До следующих выходных. Пока.
Пока.
Hi, can you tell me who you are and where do you work?
Yeah, I'm a fellow from Poland, from a tiny city called Warsaw. I'm Marcin Iwinski, co-founder and joint CEO of CDP.PL Group, which consists of CDP.PL, the distributor and publisher in Poland, CDP.PL Red, the studio behind The Witcher 1 and 2, right now working on The Witcher 3, as well as Cyberpunk 2077, and global digital distribution DRM free platform, GOG.com.
And you're at D3 showing what specifically?
Besides showing up to the meetings I've booked, we are showing The Witcher 3. That's our main focus and our huge thing at E3.
And do you find that now people view you not as a polished studio, but just as a studio with a property, as opposed to a few years ago when they were, oh, this is the game from Poland? Like, do people even realize you're in Poland now?
No, but I think, honestly answering your question, I like the lack of attaching you to a certain country in the gaming industry. It's very easy to do it in music and films. Like, for example, there's not many Polish films which succeeded worldwide, but games are extremely international. Unless you are from Poland or Russia or Germany, or screw up your localization big time, so you really give it away, and that's a very, very frequent case. But if you deliver high quality stuff, it really doesn't matter where you're from. So I think they just consider us a good developer, and that's the most important thing for us.
Okay, and in your studio, how many people are not Polish now, in general?
Okay, we have over 150 people in the studio, and the increase of the international team members has grown significantly. So I think around 25 people is not Polish, and this is definitely growing together with the growth of the studio.
And does it mean that people talk in English between themselves or in emails, or there's still this Polish communication? Because Ubisoft told me that, for example, the guy who used to work at Ubisoft, he said people would still send around emails in French, and they would exclude the American team, and they would still think this is okay because they're French.
No, I mean, people are very, I think, very, very fragile with that, because originally we were communicating obviously in Polish, and for example, when working on Witcher 1, I don't think we even had one foreign member, maybe one or two in a very specific role. But since Witcher 1, everything, including the comments in the code, all the emails that are around in English, really, unless it's like a one-to-one discussion of two Polish guys, then it's kind of silly to write in English. But every single meeting is concluded in English. I mean, I'm thinking like a few people meetings, and all the sum-ups, all the minutes of meetings are sent in English. Projects are handled in English. I mean, funny enough, I'm looking at myself. Actually, my Polish is deteriorating. To write faster, I'm not using Polish special characters, and I really have a problem with that, because whenever I have to write something in Polish, which is very rare, I have a really jungle written Polish.
Okay. And you're based in Warsaw, but do you have any other people somewhere outside of Poland, or you want to grow one location?
I mean, we really focus on one location. We almost do not have any external co-workers. Rarely we do. Obviously, part of the localization happens in the countries of a given language. But we strongly believe that it's all about the vibe, the energy, and the values we have, and managing multi-country culture. It's super tough, and a lot of energy, time, and money is lost on it. So for us, we'll most likely focus on expanding in our base location. Actually, we have just opened a smaller studio in Krakow, but it's still in I would say drivable, communicable distance and manageable distance. Definitely, if you go cross country, it gets way more difficult.
And are you open to hiring people? Let's say, so we're talking about Russia, we're talking about Ukraine and Belarus. How difficult would that be for you to hire someone from Russia, from Kiev, from Moscow, from St. Petersburg, if they're talented? If they approach you and they say, I'm an artist, here's my portfolio, or I'm a programmer, is it something you're open to?
Let me answer it differently. For me, you can be from Mars, and as long as you can get a work permit and you're talented and you share our values, we would love to have you in our team. And we had people relocating, for example, from US, and actually for US, it's not US citizens. It's not that easy to get a work permit very fast in the European Union.
Surprisingly,
yeah. But it's not that easy for us to get a work permit in the US either. So I think it's like mutual difficulty clause or something like that. But we had people relocating with 3 kids and a wife, and doing this in a month. So we are more than happy to welcome talented people. I mean, first and foremost talent, but then really sharing our values and being excited about what we're doing. We have people passionate both about The Witcher and Cyberpunk, and that's their main motivation. Because if you look at all the big and successful studios who deliver the best stuff, people follow projects right now. If you're a talented individual, you can work anywhere you want. You can work in California, you can work in Warsaw, you can work in Moscow, and you'll have no problem to find a job. So it's really about what we are offering and how you can realize your personal potential, and that's your choice. And if you are up for what we are working on, so huge AAA RPGs, give us a call, drop us a line.
So finally, to wrap this up, how would you define CD.PL? I mean, what are the values that you offer as a studio? What is your company about? Is it, I don't know, we kick ass, we want to be the biggest, or what?
Yeah, wow, cool. Key cast want to be the biggest. Not really. I think the core value for all the companies is we are not only a games development studio. What I have mentioned at the beginning, it's gamers come first, and they're in the center of what we are doing. So every single decision is filtered through that. We are honest in communications, and as far as our studios are concerned, we make the biggest and best RPGs in the world, and that's our ambition. It's all about storytelling, character development, but primarily it's, telling great stories. In case of Witcher 3 in open world, what's a totally new standard for RPG, but I'm sure we'll be pushing it even further in the coming years.
And do you play games yourself, or does the management play games, or you're kind of moved away from that and you're just looking at the financial reports?
Actually, I'm not really good looking at financial reports. I mean, in the last 20 years, I've actually learned to understand them, but they're kind of boring. So I'm of course playing games, but I'm playing very different games that I was playing a few years ago. I'm much more demanding, and I'm expecting similar entertainment from games as I have with the recent great TV series, like for example Game of Thrones. So I'm a really picky consumer. If a game is not hooking me very fast, I'm just dropping it, and this is also what I expect from my games. As I'm from our games, the games we develop. But as I'm traveling a lot, I'm using more and more mobile devices like iPad Mini. So for example, great big war game, which for I think €4, it's 50 missions. I'm playing, I don't know, 15 or 20 hours, and I'm in the middle of the game. So that's kind of good value for money.
Okay, so what was the last game that really impressed you?
I mean, without a doubt, Walking Dead. Without a doubt, Walking Dead, and simply because I have very limited time, and the way it's constructed, just after 2-3 hours, you finish the episode and you get an automatic reward. You are happy, you finished something, you completed something, and you didn't have to take 100 hours, and then I love that.
And is this something you're bringing your own games to? I mean, is Projekt going to embrace the mobile or the cross-platform? I
mean, we're definitely embracing the cross-platform because Witcher 3 will be our first multi-platform game, so PC, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. But the episodic model, I don't think it's still something that's appropriate for role-playing games. But if you turn this question around a little bit, you can look at it. You can divide the gameplay experience into smaller bits and make every single part very rewarding. So you have to ask yourself the question: okay, the gamer is having the first experience with your huge role-playing game, and Witcher 3 throughout the game with the subquest, it will be over 100 hours, so it's a beast of a game. So how are you going to hook the gamer to make him play, and how are you going to hook the gamer if he comes back to the game, let's say after a week? How are you going to remind about the story? Because these are the key things. I mean, look how people are watching TV series. It usually starts with in the previous episodes you've seen this and that. Games should have something like that. I don't remember what I was doing in Skyrim after a month, and I'm totally lost, and and I'm frustrated. And if you're frustrated, you'll probably drop the game and go for something else, be it a TV series, book, or a cinema.
Okay, so hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to you in detail about the studio sometime in August, and we'll just do a feature about Projekt, and we'll have our listeners being able to ask you different questions. But for
Great,
the
man.
moment,
Great, man. I mean, you're more than welcome. Come on over. We'll show you around, and we'll be happy to answer all the questions.
And whoever is talented enough, you guys should just send your resumes to Projekt and see if maybe this is something for you.
Talented and passionate.
And GOG.com rocks, by the way.
Oh, yeah. That was Guillaume, the MD of GOG, yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, can you tell me what is your name and what's your job title and where do you work?
Привет, красавец. My name is Guillaume. I'm the boss of GOG.com, the DRM-free digital distribution platform of PC and Mac games.
Okay, and you're here for E3 in Los Angeles?
No, I mean E3 in Singapore, but no, yeah, I'm here in LA. Yes,
yeah, occasionally, just by accident. Okay, and my biggest question is: do you think it's worth for a small team to go to E3, or they can skip this event?
It depends where the dev studio comes from. I mean, if it's a studio from Europe, I'm not convinced it makes sense to spend so much cash to go to the E3. It's a bit far, and I'm not sure it's worth the money for them. You know, they have a game to develop, so maybe it's better to stay in Europe and concentrate on the game, and Gamescom could be a better fit for them. I think for an American dev studio, it can make sense. However, it all depends on what they want to achieve, and if they want to sign a publishing deal, it can make sense to come to E3 because you have quite some publishers, even though the biggest publishers are not coming this year, but usually you can find a publisher at the E3 as a small dev studio. However, I'm not sure that, you know, indie dev studios, they need publishers that much these days. There are more and more indie devs who can publish the game themselves directly, digitally. So, all in all, well, I have mixed feelings. I'm not convinced it makes full sense for an indie development studio to come here. It should be done on a case-by-case basis, and generally I think there is less and less interest because they can reach consumers directly themselves.
But okay, so my question is, your colleague Oleg Klopovsky, he's very often a part of the industry events in Russia and in Ukraine, but in general, if there is a team that has a product to offer on your platform, would you be actually willing to come and meet them, or they have to catch you at E3 or Gamescom?
We do both, actually. I mean, we go to the big shows because it's an opportunity for us to meet devs, but sometimes we fly to them directly. Of course, it's easier to meet the devs in Europe, so sometimes, I don't know, we go to Finland, we go to Poland, we go to Russia, we go to Turkey, whatever, so nearby countries. Visiting devs in the US, well, it's a bit too far, but that's why the E3 is here for us.
And then Oleg, do you have anything to add to what he said? Можно по-русски? Ты такие показывал странные жесты сейчас.
Красавец, давай!
Нет, ну вопрос в том, насколько для студии важно быть на событиях, мероприятиях вроде E3 и Gamescom, и насколько вы открыты к тому, чтобы ребята к вам приехали в Варшаву, либо вы бы к ним приехали?
Мы бы предпочли общаться лично в Европе. Это значительно проще, значительно дешевле для студий. Ехать сюда, это, ну, по крайней мере, на E3, сейчас это трата денег бесполезная. Сейчас, ну, на мой взгляд, самое большое мероприятие, которое происходит на территории Северной Америки, это GDC, проходящая в Сан-Франциско. Там вы действительно можете встретить абсолютно всех разработчиков, издателей, пообщаться в частном каком-то характере, в порядке, в отеле, на какой-то вечеринке, во время после лекции. В то время как E3 это по-прежнему является местом сбора таких больших ребят, которые сами оплатили это мероприятие и хотят показать что-то в основном для американской публики, для своего рынка, и это в основном все-таки ритейл-ориентированные мероприятия. Не тратьте деньги, не надо сюда ехать, лучше давайте встретимся в Европе.
Is it normal to make such long answers in Russian, or?
No. He was mostly commenting on the business strategy of GOG and revealing the numbers.
Oh, and so that's why he would be fired tomorrow morning, right?
So Guillaume, tell me. So how open is your platform to younger teams? Like, let's say the team never shipped a game before, and they think they have a good game, and they would like to talk to you. Can you tell me at which moment it makes sense to talk? When they have playable, when they have a concept, when they have, I don't know, a beta?
So first, I mean, two comments. I think the right moment to come to us is anytime they have a playable build. So can be alpha, can be beta, whatever. But if the build is playable, is great. However, I'd like to stress that we have two main criteria on GOG. The game has to be good. That's number one. And second, we want devs who care for gamers, and that's the most important thing for us. We want gamers who want, to cultivate the passion behind games, excite gamers, give them the good old vibes, the gameplay thrill, and not gamers who are just willing to make, developers who are just willing to make money, but developers who truly care for the noble cause of gaming.
Can you give like one advice to the developers or to people who are going to be the developers in a few years in working digitally in the modern world? How can they be more efficient?
By being different. Don't try to imitate so-called proven methods to make money digitally, because for one successful developer you have 50 developers who fail. So stick to what you know to do best and try to be different, because the digital war, it's all about visibility. It's all about getting visible on all digital distribution platforms, and the only way is to be special, not to be mainstream like anybody can do easily.
Okay, and Олег, у тебя какой совет будет разработчикам?
Будьте яркими, будьте умными, не повторяйте других, ищите свой путь.
Это звучит как совет, как одеваться на дискотеку новогоднюю.
Не то слово, я так всегда старался одеваться.
Спасибо, Гийом.
Спартак!
Спасибо, Гийом. Спасибо, Олег.
Всегда пожалуйста.
Давай, Спартак!
Это GOG.com для подкаста сайта galenkin.com. Спасибо. Hi, can you introduce yourself briefly and where do you work right now? What do you do?
My name is Troy Goodfellow. I am a PR representative for Evolve PR. Before that, I was in the games media for about 7 or 8 years.
And you're from Canada?
I am from Canada. I lived in the U.S. for 10 years, and that's where I did most of my games journalism. But I'm born in Canada, and I live there again.
Okay, and you're mostly at Evolve. You're representing developers or publishers?
I'm representing a bit of both. We do a lot of work with independent developers, small companies who want either launching their first game or a lot of mobile developers, but we also work with some rather large publishers, large European publishers and distributors.
When you said small developers, I thought of Projekt, right?
Yeah, they're this tiny thing, this nothing of a game called Witcher, which you've probably never heard of.
From this tiny little country,
It's
Poland
really
or
in Russia, Who's Witcher?
Yes.
Witcher, yeah, Witcher. Okay, fine. And what do you think right now the developers lack the most, or in this transition they didn't learn yet, but they have to learn? Like, what is this thing that they need to master to be really successful?
I guess the one thing developers have to learn to be really successful, it's a tricky balance in listening to your community, what they're telling you, listening to community feedback, but not being a slave to community feedback. The difference between having a hardcore base and addressing your hardcore base and the people who like your sort of game, but not designing for them and letting them direct where the game should go, because of course you want to sell the game to people who like your sort of game and you want to address that, but you can't have them build the game for you. You need to break out, do something different, and stay true to some sort of vision and cohesion. And a lot of developers, especially starting developers, they come up with this great idea for community, we want to get everybody involved, and can't have trouble working that line. They're either too rigid in their ideas, I'm the designer, I know what's right, therefore I can just ignore the community altogether, even if they have legitimate complaints, or they just address every complaint and tweak far too often, and thereby lose the direction. So it's knowing where to make that limit, and I wish there was a easy way to teach it, but there really isn't. It requires having a good community manager, for one thing, someone who can sort through, what is a legitimate complaint and what isn't, and having designers who have a clear vision, because some people come into game development and they think, and their clear vision of a game is, I want to make a game that I liked when I was 12 years old. It's...
yes, that's exactly the point.
Ken Dryden, the great Montreal Canadiens goaltender, so the golden age is when you're 13. Everybody's golden age is when you're 13. And I think that's something that a lot of new developers have some struggles with. Is drawing this line of what is the vision, what is the community, and how do they mix? Especially today, where it is so easy to get constant community feedback over Twitter, over Facebook, on YouTube comments, filtering the wheat from the chaff, and that's where good community management comes in. That's where making sure the developer has somebody around them who will tell them when they're full of shit, I can use that term. Someone who the developer can trust for honest feedback on the team.
What do you say to the position of several developers that paying for PR is like paying for sex, and that if the game is good, it's going to sell itself, and if the game is bad, there's no amount of PR that can help it. And if I have to pay for PR as a developer, it means that I'm not attractive enough, and I wouldn't do that because anyway, they're not going to love my product, they're going to love the money.
I'm not going to say there's nothing to that. There's certainly a point where a really good game will sell itself, and sometimes you do get the viral hits like Minecraft that will just break out, and there's no PR there, that people just found, a couple of media found that, and then it just exploded bigger than anybody could have expected. 95 times out of 100, your game is not Minecraft. It's not that creative, that interesting, that original, that it's going to be able to do that. So if you can't bank on the viral hit. And a bad game, good PR can get bad games in the hands of media who will tell you how bad your game is. That's kind of their job. We can't make your game... Maybe, hopefully, if you hold the review copies long enough, you will have sold enough based on good PR that you can make your money back. But no, we can't help it. There's only so much you can do with a bad game or a broken game. You can do nothing for a broken game, a game that doesn't work. However, for a game that is in a specific niche, where the journalist or the developer doesn't know which media to target, doesn't know how to cater that message to a certain website. You can send all the review copies out you want, but if you don't know which people on certain sites know your genre of game, are familiar with it, don't have the relationships to help prepare preview guides, so look, here's what to expect, to help develop plans, which is probably the biggest asset PR can have, is giving you a plan for when do you deliver certain assets, where do you send certain assets, what is your overarching schedule. There's a certain art to it, and it's something that I had to learn. Probably one of the biggest challenges I learned coming from media, where we always had schedules. Yes, there were deadlines, but it's a firm deadline, that was that. And then moving into PR, where it's okay, we have to have a 6-month plan. And then what happens if an asset slips? Well, we have to find something else to fill that gap. You can't be quiet. And I think a lot of developers, especially young developers coming in, if they're lucky and they have a really great game and they know the media well, for example, I'll give you an example of one of our clients. He did a Kickstarter, and before he started his Kickstarter, he just hired us pretty much to edit press releases, which was great, which is fine. He's a very good friend of mine, so we didn't mind doing that. But before that, because he'd been in the games industry for a while, starting his own company, he knew who to talk to. So he could line up on the day his Kickstarter launched, because he knew who at Polygon to call, and he knew who at Raw Paper Shotgun to call, because he'd worked with, he did press presentations for these people at his old job. He could set up podcast appearances. He could set up feature interviews because he had these connections. Not every developer has that. Not every developer knows who is going to give you the time of day in the media to talk about your game or how to pitch it. A lot of developers are so close to their game. This is something we find a lot in PR, is you ask a developer, what makes your game special or different? And they can't answer that. They don't know what their hook is. They don't know how they distinguish themselves from everything else out there. They know why they like their game, but that doesn't mean that that's a hook for media. Oh, look, it has all these guns. No. I'm sorry, this is something that Tom, my boss, has said many times. There was a time when the number of guns on your press release was an important feature list. That used to matter, but you can't go into PR today saying, hey, we've got 25 guns. Especially when you...
I remember the times. 18 maps, 25 guns, yeah.
Yeah, now the more numbers you have on your press release, that kind of means you don't know anything about your game beyond a checklist, and the numbers are there for numbers.
What was your experience working with Evolve? And what you're a veteran in the PR and marketing, and Sergey, who runs Nival, is also.
A lot of our competitors are listening to this. Don't work with Evolve; they're bad. Never don't work with Evolve. Let's just
overpriced.
Yeah, overpriced. Yeah,
they're just mad. They're just raving mad.
We'll just keep it for ourselves. No, actually, Evolve is great. So we get a lot of good experience with Evolve, and the thing is that it's just like Troy said. He says we don't understand what we can show to people and to which people exactly. That's the point. You need to find the right guy for your game to be involved in it. Like it happened with Turtle Biscuit. Turtle Biscuit was so hooked on Primal Defenders. He wasn't really like best player in this game, but his description sold, I guess, more copies than any review. It's something that Evolve helped us to do,
And what do you think are the requisites on the developer side to be able to work with the PR agency? Because I would imagine some people will just hire an agency and expect the agency to do everything for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is knowing kind of what the limits of what a PR agency can do. We can't help you with your design. We can't. Well, we can. I mean, we can do bug testing. We can do mock reviews and that sort of thing, and let you know how things are shaping up. And we can help with a lot of European developers with, translations and trailer creation. The game itself, there's only so much we can do. We aren't technical people. But I think the biggest thing you have, if you're looking for a PR agency, is you have to look for. I guess my one recommendation is find a game about your size of game in your genre, and who did they use? Did they hire a PR team? There are lots of good independent PR teams out there. We're not the only one. We're a small team, but we are pretty close. We talk constantly over Skype, but we're not the only one, and some people do other genres better than us. We certainly turn down clients who we don't think we can help, and we push them onto other people, because we're not going to just take your money and write a press release and throw it out there and forget about it. If we can't help you, there's no point. It wastes our time and your money. So I guess the best piece of advice is to, look around, shop. And, I mean, people say good things about us at Evolve because, we do reach out to our clients. We spend as much time as we can working with them as closely as we can. But there are people we cannot work with because of time.
Because they're idiots.
Well, yeah, sometimes because they're idiots. I'm not going to say we have not been pitched by idiots, but mostly because they want too much in too little of a time. Like we're a small company, or they don't have a plan together. They have this rough idea of we have a release date, but we don't have any video. We have a few screenshots, but you can't do screenshots anymore. No one cares about screenshots. It's kind of like the 12 guns and 18 maps. No one cares about that anymore. Screenshots are great and special, but really they're only used to the print media because or to illustrate articles. People just flip through them. It's not an event anymore. There's I think a big problem with a lot of developers is, well, we mentioned the generational thing, and this is something we're working hard with developers to understand. Is that front page of GameSpot doesn't mean what it used to. The consumers are going for information in a wide range of places. They're going to blogs, not just the big news blogs like Kotaku and Joystick Destructive. They're not really blogs anymore. Those are top tier websites. But they're going to Reddit, and they're going to YouTube, and they're going to podcasts.
NeoGAF.
They're going to NeoGAF. God bless them. They're going to NeoGAF still. I mean, that site's been around forever. That forum's been around forever, and it's one of the best news aggregators out there. They go to
Polygon.
Polygon, the great new website. They go to Twitter. The sites are changing, the media is changing, and how people get their news is changing. And a lot of developers still look at either front page of GameSpot, high prestige review, or how many reviews did we get. So they look at the count of coverage.
Look at the clips. I'm going to guarantee you 40 clips.
Yeah, the number of clips, not or the score. Is it a good? Oh, we got 9 out of 10 from this site I've never heard of. No, that's kind of useless. Or even looking at the Metacritic score, which is important. I understand Metacritic's important for moving sales in Steam, but sometimes for your next game, it's important to actually read the review. Because, even if you're not working with us for the next game, because we couldn't get you that 85 Metacritic score, which we try to do what we can with that, making sure that we steer it to good Metacritic reviewers we can trust to give better scores, which we do from time to time, because there are some softies out there, we know who they are. But, it's important to, look at the wider picture and read the reviews and read the criticisms, and the criticisms that we give you in our discussions of games. And we say, look, can we speed this up? This isn't always easy. Sometimes we have a 3-month window if someone hires us and the game's coming in 3 months, well, we can't make the game better. But if we have clients which is like a 12-month window, so we can do things like help with text and developer diaries and all of this great grand creation of schedules. PR it's not something I intended to go into. It's something that life forced me into. I would have preferred to have stayed in media, but I can't say that I haven't learned a lot doing it. I learned a lot how I could have done my job in media better doing it. And I've met some really interesting people. I've learned a lot about development in doing it, both for good and for ill. A lot of media know nothing about development. They don't have to, because all they know is the game good or not. But having the window on time pressures has actually been kind of cool, and I think it's nice if media understood that. I mean, nice if consumers understood that.
Okay, thanks very much. Anything you want to add?
No.
Just go ahead and hire a PR agency if you're a developer?
It's usually you need a PR agency for markets that you don't understand, especially if it's market with different cultural background. So, for example, for Russian developers to go into American market, we would fuck up so badly if we didn't have somebody in the United States.
For a Ukrainian developer, you can go anywhere in the world. You just
fine, right? But really, you need to understand another people's culture, and it's easiest way to understand it is having somebody, on the other side. Somebody is local.
Can I speak up? It's actually a very important point, because we work with a lot of European developers, and even with American developers going the other way, I don't think a lot of people appreciate the differences in gaming cultures. That there is a big difference between what German consumers and media want, and English media and consumers want, and even English and American, because the English consumers are so much more PC focused than American consumers. So you have so we have a PC game. We have so many people in the UK to pitch to. In the US, we probably have the same number of people to pitch to in a country, so much bigger. So in Germany and Japan and China. So you really need to have I'm not saying a peer agency for every one of those territories, so it wouldn't hurt. But it's certainly something developers need to be aware of, and PR agencies need to be aware of. I'd be useless trying to sell a game in Japan. So, PR agencies need to know their own limits.
So ideally you just get an Ukrainian PR agency and they get you everywhere.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, thanks a lot, Roy. Hi, can you tell me who you are and where you work?
My name is Linus Feldt. I work for a Swedish company, game studio called Filimindus, and we specialize in doing kids games, mostly based on famous characters, famous Swedish characters like Petson and Findus and Pippi Longstocking and alike. Pretty small studio. We're 9 of us, but it's a very hearty and very, very nice studio. Nice people.
Yeah, what kind of platforms you're releasing on?
We've always tried to be a cross or multi-platform studio. So obviously our prime platform is iOS, but we are also releasing for Android, and we also had should I say, interesting experience with Windows 8. We were hoping for that platform, but it did not really work that well.
Okay, and for your studio right now, what is the main challenge or the goal for the next year or so? Like, what's your business goal?
Well, actually, we have a very straightforward goal. It's not easy to sustain in the kids app category mobile. So our goal is to honestly just turn profitable. We want to have a sustainable business where we have a baseline of products or a backlog of products that gives us a baseline of revenues that will just make us happy enough and not so stressed enough so we can develop more and fun products, experiment more.
And for the moment, your titles that you launched, what is the success rate? Or are you happy with the sales? Or are you selling well locally, internationally? What's the situation there?
We've had a really good run with some of our games that we thought only would have a national market that turned out to be very profitable internationally. However, we're a bit concerned about the the lifespan of these products because they were a little bit shorter than we expected. We have because of the characters, because of the well-known established brands, we have a higher long tail than most other products, because people don't need, like for instance, Pippi Longstocking, they don't need the advertisement around Pippi Longstocking. They will just wake up and search for Pippi one day. So our flatlines are a little bit better, I would think. And we had a really good period during this Christmas. In January and February, it was amazingly well, and then something happened. Then everything just went down, and we're like, what? So we need to go back to our marketing drawing board and understanding what's really going on. But we've been very successful and fortunate enough to have a good run internationally as well as nationally.
Yeah, and in terms of the industry in Sweden or in Stockholm where you are, do you get any opportunities to share the data or to meet other developers, and how open they are about, sitting together and saying, this is what I have and what do you have and how we can do this?
Oh yeah, I mean I think that's been the most fun part in the mobile industry, because back in the days you had like big studios, game studios, and they were like whipped on their head with NDAs and stuff like that, and now people are like, well, we have this huge company that we're actually working with or against, depends how you see it. That's Apple or Google Play, and they are very, how should I put it, they're not so open with numbers, so that forces the small developers to talk to themselves or talk around, which is something that I totally like and totally appreciate. Also, particularly in Sweden, and this is, I'm not saying that other countries are bad at it, I'm just saying that we are really open when it comes to figures, because we don't really
summer season.
Probably the summer season mostly, but and of course during intercourse, I'm sorry, but we are very open with numbers, and this is something I truly appreciate, and that's like the comeback of the small independent studios. We're doing this because we need to do it, because we want to do it, but we also enjoy doing it, and we still have it's sort of a sign of freedom that we can actually do it. So I find a lot of people, especially when they meet, more open than anything else. As soon as people are going to start sending numbers through email, they're shit scared. But when they meet, they're like, this is how we did, this is how we sold. And I appreciate that. I really like it.
Cool. And how long are you in the industry? How many years have you spent? I think, like 5, 6, 7, 10, 15?
I'm celebrating my 20th year anniversary next year. So I'm a veteran. But I still look very good. I still look very young for my age.
In the industry, 20 years?
Yeah. I know, it's insane.
Okay, and what is your first title that you've done?
The first title was Peasant and Findus with Sven Nordqvist. That was 1994.
On Windows?
Yeah, a CD-ROM platform. Not only Windows, Macintosh as well. We've been cross-platform from the beginning. When I was born, I was cross-platform.
Awesome. And how many people do you have right now in the studio?
9.
And in your experience, what is the big change when you set up the new studio? What are the stages that you go through, like 3 people or 9 people? Is there a difference? And 9 people and 15 people, is there a difference? Like, what is the threshold when you have to change the management structure or something?
Well, for me, and I think that this is something that I've heard from other companies as well, there's a magic limit. There's a magic limit creatively around 10. There was a business guy who once told me that when you exceed the number of 8 people, then things starts to happen. I think the truth is somewhere around there, like 8 to 10. So if you want to have a hearty bunch of people that are doing games because they like to, I think that for me it would be hard to have a bigger team than 10. But this is also coming from someone where my maximum experience was like 16 people or 18 people. Mm-hmm. So actually I don't know what it is to run a company with 50 people, but I think that I would start dividing the company if I had 50. I was like into 5-10 groups. Seriously, that's actually what I would do.
And do you have any management structure, or do you how do you plan? Do you get around every every Friday, or do you do stand-up meetings every morning, or?
We're actually very happy that we nowadays have a good management structure. No, we didn't. It was the Wild West a year ago. But now we have 3 different teams. We have 2 production teams with 1 team leading each team, and then we have a marketing team. So that's total 3 people per team, so to speak. And then they cross-pollinate, so sometimes they jump over to different projects. But so there's 1 person from each of those 3 teams that form what we call this sort of a strategy group. And it's actually a 4th person as well, because we have 1 person that's totally dedicated to launching into different platforms. So when it comes to releases and pricing and stuff like that, we're a nice group of 4 that discuss this. So this is the only structure that we have. We get together every 2 weeks, and then we analyze the products, and we do the pricing, and we plan the releases, and then I have a separate sort of product strategy meeting every 2 weeks with the team leads, not the market people, and then we bounce it off the market people, and so that's all we have. And within the small teams, they are free to use whatever structure, morning meetings, or whatever technology or technique they want. So that's
right. And in your experience, finally, what is the primary motivation of people going to you to develop games? Do they do it for money? Do they do it for passion? Do they do it because they're not getting any other job? Like, how do people end up in games industry in Sweden whenever you're hiring?
It's quite funny, because when we were hiring people 2 years ago, I think that 30% of the applications came from people that had been in the industry for so long, developing different, action games or war games, and they had the opportunity of having 3 times the salary that we could offer. But they came to us because they were so fed up in doing console action games. They wanted to do something that they could show their kids, and of course we hired them.
Okay. So you're talking about people with passion for specifically games.
Yeah, passion for games for kids. That has been the driving force. The first question we ask when we hire people is, or we actually have 2 questions. First, do you have kids? I'm not saying it's simple that you have to have kids in order to work for us, but you need to have kids around you to understand what they do.
The second is, if not, do you want to have kids with me, or?
No, that would be other team members of the company. No, the second question is do you feel passionate about kids games? Do you want to change the world when it comes to kids? Because that is what we're doing. We're trying to change the world for kids.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Hi, what is your name, and where do you work, and what is your business?
Noam Weisberg, and I'm working at Edlee Entertainment, and we are a distribution company for video games in Israel.
And how long do you work in the games industry?
Close to 20 years.
And where did you work before?
The last company I worked for was Namco Bandai, which was before Infogram and Atari. And before that I worked for 2 Israeli companies.
And you distribute what? PC, console, everything?
All platforms that exist in the market, which means PC and console.
And people play in English, or people play in Russian, or people play in Hebrew?
Most people play in English. You have some people that will play in Russia. You have some people that will play in Arabic. But most people will play in English.
And you release on the same day as everybody in Europe or America? Is it like day 1 release? People expect that?
Yeah, for the AAA title, for the big titles, people expect to be the first, to be at least the same time. If it's possible to be 2 minutes before, it's always better.
I mean,
and how much do people pay normally? The same prices in Europe or the same prices in America?
More close to America. We try to be more close to America. Not always succeed, but we try. It's a very much the market is very much influenced by US market or by UK, which is more closer to each other than Germany or France or Spain or Italy. So basically, these are the prices more close to US and UK.
Would you say that PC is dead or not for you?
No, not dead at all. PC is very big. It was bigger until 3, 4, 5 years ago, but we still have big market share on PC. The big surprise, the largest surprise for us was the last 12 months or a bit more. Like everywhere else was Diablo 3. It was a huge success for us, and I just saw a number today that surprised me and not surprised me, is that Diablo 3 was a number 2 game in 2012 in terms of revenue, in terms of quantity, in full price. If you take all games that released during 2012, it was number 2 after Call of Duty and before FIFA.
Okay, but this is
just one platform, where all the others are cross-platform usually.
But it requires online, right? And stuff that doesn't require online connection?
No, usually people either they will play Facebook or iPad or smartphone, or they will play, if they play video game on PC, they will play online.
Okay, and which publishers do you represent, or which labels do you carry?
We work with Electronic Arts, Activision Blizzard, Bethesda, Namco Bandai, Disney and Codemaster.
A few small labels, yeah. Okay.
No, humble. Everybody. It's not a question of small or bad. It's sometimes it's a good title, sometimes not.
And for you in Israel, is the market still growing in general? The games market?
It's it depends. Generally, it's not growing, but it's not decreasing. It's kind of stable. It depends on the retailer. It depends on the retailer on the sales side. It depends on the publisher on the game side. But more or less on the retail side, if you do the basic things, you can, let's say, easily increase your market. But you need to do the basic. You need visibility, you need some marketing, you need good pricing, you need good service. If you do these kind of things, you can increase, not by 2-digit, but you can increase your business.
And in your opinion, is it PlayStation 4 over Xbox One, or Xbox One over PlayStation 4?
I don't know so much about video games, especially not hardware. No, I think the good point from what I heard, from what I saw, and I didn't saw a lot, but from what I saw and read in the last 24 hours, I think the pricing was a big thing, and I think on this point Sony wins so far. We will see what will happen in the next 4 or 5 months. And from what I heard also, the specific for each console, Sony is a bit in advance, but again, when I look with my eyes, I don't see the difference even today between the PS3 and the X360, so for me it's the same.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, what is your name and where do you work?
My name is Ragnar Tørnqvist and I work at Red Thread Games in Oslo, Norway, where we're making Dreamfall Chapters.
What do you know about Dreamfall Chapters?
I only know about Dreamfall and Longest Journey, this game I played before,
Was it okay?
It was great, actually. Yeah, I own both collector's edition because I like this.
What is the best thing about Dreamfall and Longest Journey that the Russian audience you think
I
like?
think in my opinion, the best thing about Longest Journey and Dreamfall is lead character. So it was a strong female lead character that's rarely seen in modern games. That was the point. It was actually quite interesting in terms of quest thingy, but adventure stuff. But I mostly like it for lead character and well-written story.
Does this match what people think in other parts of the world?
I think this kind of feedback we hear a lot and that we like to hear. We put a lot of emphasis on creating believable characters, believable dialogue, a story that of course touches on fantasy. I mean, it is a story that goes into fantasy, and there's a lot to do with the split between two worlds, about the world with the world of Stark and the world of Arcadia. But it feels real. The people are real. So when you meet April Ryan in The Longest Journey, she's a student, she's a normal person living a normal life, and then she realizes that there is another world out there. There's a world of magic, and she travels to that. And we have the same situation in Dreamfall, where Zoe, the lead character there, sort of understands that she has this power to dream herself into another world. So yeah, that's part of our legacy, creating believable characters that take place, in a world you can believe in, but that turns into a world that is filled with magic and wondrous things.
And did Kickstarter campaign put any pressure on you? Like, do you feel that the backers are every morning demanding and expecting something?
During the Kickstarter, we had to spend a lot of time making sure that we deliver something new every day. It was a tiring month. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. But now I feel people are actually really patient. They know we're hard at work on the game. They know it takes a while to get to get done. So they're giving us some space, but they definitely want to see how progress is and what we're doing. They want to see new stuff.
What?
Any questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions about my Kickstarter actually, but I don't think we should, record them live.
No, I mean we're gonna do a long podcast, like proper about the team and about setting up the studio. It's just a small preview right now, so people get to know.
I think I'm actually interested in how do you launch basically adventure game in 2013. I mean, everybody thinks that they're dead, and suddenly you go onto Kickstarter. Tim Schafer goes on the Kickstarter, and suddenly it's not dead. It's like everybody wants to play it. It is, just rediscovery of the genre.
I think the people have been saying adventure games are dead for 15 years now. I remember them saying that before The Longest Journey came out as well. Like, the problem with adventure games, I think, was that it didn't reinvent itself as quickly as other genres, but it has been reinventing itself in quiet for the past 15 years. Adventure games keep coming out, they keep making money, they keep being successful, but there aren't enough of them. I think there's a hungry audience of people who really want an adventure game and want something that has modern graphics, that pushes the boundaries, tries to do more stuff with story and character that hasn't been done before, that's high quality, and that's what we can deliver, and that's what people backed us for, to get something that they feel is first of all continuation of the story they love, but secondly to get a proper adventure game, one that really feels like both return to how they used to be and evolution of the genre.
I mean, look at Walking Dead from Telltale. It's smashing success, nobody expected it. It's basically an adventure game with a story with believable characters, and it's not popular because it's based on TV show. I never saw TV show. But I like game.
Yeah, I think that's an example of adventure games. Suddenly that game sells millions and it's game of the year. And people are like, what, adventure games are back? But it's not about that. They're just, people waiting for a game that had a strong story, great, interesting player choices that made them feel something. And that's what we're doing too with Dreamfall Chapters. The adventures are good at making you feel something. And people want that. I mean, you look at a lot of the games on the show floor here at E3 and they look fantastic and there's millions of dollars put into just a presentation here. But they don't necessarily make you feel anything. It's sort of like, yeah, that looks cool. I'll play it and I'll play it for 10 hours and I'll forget about it because that's the way it is. Disposable. It costs $100 million and you throw it away, but I think what people want is something that lingers, something that they remember years down the line, as they remember those moments in the game, they mean something to them.
Yeah, I just had a funny situation with my friend who knows games very well. He was here and he saw Titanfall and then Destiny trailers, and he couldn't tell them apart. He was like, oh, there's a game with jetpacks and robots and stuff like that.
It's the same game. It's crazy. Like, you walk around the bar, it's all sort of aliens and sci-fi robots and weaponry, and it's so much money, and yet they look exactly the same. You can't tell the difference. You're like, I'm not sure which one that is. The one with the dog is Call of Duty. I know that. They have a dog in that.
So will you have zombies in Dreamfall Chapters?
Somewhat.
Some zombies?
With every game needs zombies, right?
That's true.
Like a zombie dog or something, I don't know.
Zombie Zoe. We'll stay away, but I think we'll, who knows, maybe that's what happens. But we really want to do things differently, so we're trying to sort of do things that nobody else does. Our game starts with you playing a young woman who has a boyfriend, you play a day in her life, and it's a normal day, and no games do that. You don't go upstairs here and see that. Upstairs there have jetpacks and people shooting each other. They don't have boyfriends and workplaces and things like that. It's a different world.
And how big is your team right now? I mean, what kind of scale you're talking?
Yeah, the Dreamfall team is going to be about 15 people. So we're about 13 people now. So we're going to hire a few more people, and then going to keep working on Dreamfall Chapters until the end of next year. And then we're going to grow as a company and do more exciting and interesting stuff.
That's a really small team, actually.
It is a very small team. The original Dreamfall team was about 30 people and cost twice as much, but since with the experience we have, the people who worked on the team have worked with each other for a very long time. Everybody's really good. We have some really great tools. We're using Unity, which makes the game development so much easier for us. We can do stuff cheaper, faster, better than we could in the past. So 15 people is it's enough.
Is everybody in the team a veteran or experienced developer, or do you hire someone from the university?
Good question. We had the core team of sort of people who started the company are all very experienced and have a decade each in the industry. The new people we're hiring are completely fresh people. We like to have a balance. So, new people can bring energy to the team and they can bring new stuff, but they can learn a lot from the older guys,
Everybody is male?
No, we have 3 women working at the company right now, so we hope to add more. I think it's important when you make a game that's also, it's also a game for female gamers as well as male gamers. It's important to have women working on the team.
I think that's what the big difference about your games is, that they were not those kind of male chauvinistic things that people really wanted to go and you don't really promote it with the naked chick on the booth, and there was no really. It's not very often in the industry. Very often it's like, this is what the boys want, this is what they want, and
we try to do something that has what the women want as well. Strong female characters, focus on deep stories, on themes, on gameplay that isn't just about shooting people. Well, guys want that too. It's not like all male gamers want to fight and kill. We also want to experience a good story.
Okay, so we'll grab you for about an hour and a half sometime in August, hopefully, and we'll sit down and talk about the independent production and doing the right thing with years of experience.
And big thing, going independent and trying to do great games on a budget with no publisher. I think it's kind of defining of our current situation. So definition of current situation, like big publishers are dying in PC market. You don't need big publisher to go mobile or to go iPad. So suddenly everybody might be independent. Like it's happened in Russia when we had a crisis. So like Naval is now independent because everybody just fell down and had to go independent to survive. But I mean, you still need publisher for console, but not for anything else.
Yeah, and you don't even need a publisher for PlayStation 4. On PlayStation 4, we can self-publish, which is fantastic. So it's changing the way the world works.
The only thing you need publisher for is Xbox One, right?
But I think the big difference about Red Thread was that you guys are just talking about your game. You're not trying to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, we're poor, help us, or we're different, or whatever.
It's another Sergey because everybody's called Sergey, as I told.
Hi, I'm Ragnar.
Ragnar Tørnqvist.
Hi, nice to meet you.
It's head of our studio.
Okay.
He's not famous enough to go to on record. Как тебя зовут, мальчик?
Что?
Как тебя зовут?
Читать умеешь?
Какой-то подошел дядька и визитку протягивает Рагнару, он нам не нужен.
Yes, basically standing between 3 Sergeys give you even more luck than standing between 2.
Very true.
Especially in States, I mean.
Yeah, like that's
in Russia it's kind of easier,
yeah,
but in the States,
3 Sergeys, good luck, yeah.
Yeah, huge success with real estate.
Need to invest right away.
Yeah, I'm gonna rub this up. Hi, can you tell me what your name is, where you work, and what's your background in general?
Sure. My name is Tom Oley. I'm director of Evolve PR. And I've been working in games for about 12 years. I started at BioWare and have kind of worked there for about 4 years and started doing PR agency stuff and been doing that for the last 8 years or so.
So you're running your own agency for how many years?
I've been running the agency for about 6.5 years now.
Okay, awesome. And how many people do you have? Like, how many people do you work with in your agency? Is it you alone or Troy or Shannon?
Sure. So our agency is myself and then 3 other people, as well as my wife, who does a lot of our accounting and sort of just regular business operations stuff. And we're a virtual studio or a virtual agency. So I work up in Vancouver Island, and then we have other people sort of all around North America.
And your clients, where do they come from? You work with Americans, you work with, what's the background in terms of publisher, developer, and also which countries?
Sure. Yeah, we work with actually kind of clients from all over the world. I think that because of some of the higher profile clients that we've worked with, like CD Projekt, like Larian Studios and guys like that, we end up having a lot of European press, or a lot of European clients, that we work with on a pretty regular basis. There's some more people coming through there. This is a great spot for our E3 interviews, but It's great. But yeah, so we work with kind of clients from sort of all over the world. I think we work with a lot of European clients that don't have representation in the U.S., as well as some smaller U.S. clients, as well as guys like Epic Games, Focus Home Interactive in France. Sort of a lot of different clients of all different shapes and sizes, I think.
And how big is your biggest client, and how small is your smallest client?
That's a tough question. I mean, depending on how we define, what's a big client and what's a small client. We work with games like The Witcher 3, which is obviously a huge game here at the show. As well as, indies. We work with guys like Switchblade Monkeys, who are exhibiting a game called Secret Ponchos down at the PS4 booth. And so those are kind of really small teams. We've also worked with, kind of two-person operations that just kind of need a little bit of help pushing out reviews or sending out announcements to the media and just getting a little bit more traction. So we try and accommodate a pretty wide range of clients.
And what is this common thing between your clients who work with you successfully that they are able to do to make the most of working with a PR agency? Because whether or not the company is small, the company is large, they anyway have to find the time to deal with you, and they have to find the right, the right attitude to working with you. And it's not really about the money. I mean, everybody has some money that they can put on the table, but what in your opinion, makes the client efficient in working in cooperation with PR agencies like yours?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a challenge that we face in that, we have a pretty wide range of different types of clients and with a lot of different types of needs. So, we have some clients who have their own internal PR teams. So obviously, in those cases, a lot of times they just work with us to have presence in the U.S. or in North America in general. So for some of those clients, we're basically little more than, we just send out press releases, send out review codes, and that's kind of what we do. With others, we're their only PR presence, especially for a lot of the indie studios. We're the only thing they have, the only way for them to interact with media. And in both cases, it can work well, depending on how those developers and publishers are set up, but I think that for an ideal cooperation with PR agencies, at least good PR agencies, you want to be able to have a good dialogue and be able to have a pretty open relationship about what works and what doesn't. I think that most people, when they hire a PR agency, it's because maybe they don't know much about the PR market or the media landscape, or they don't know, exactly how to interact with people. So if you're not willing to listen to your PR agency and say, let's not do this press tour because we don't think it's going to be worth it. If you tell us to do it and you don't get the coverage you want, I'll say you should have listened to us in the first place, and same thing happens on a lot of different things. I mean, if you're hiring a PR agency and you kind of just want them to do your work, you better hope that the work that you want them to do is actually going to be beneficial and is actually going to help you get coverage. Because, especially in our case, we really want to, we're trying to do things, I guess, the right way, which may in some cases not necessarily be the best way for some clients, or at least that's their perception, in that, you may want to send out a press release to announce some new screenshots, but the media just really don't care. They would be just as happy if you send out a one-sentence announcement saying, hey, here's some new screenshots, here's the FTP. They don't care about a quote from your developers. They don't care about a quote from your executives. It's just not all that important. I think there's a lot of different examples of things like that where a lot of people expect, like, I should be on IGN, I should be on GameSpot, I should be on all these websites, but until you've earned the attention, you're not going to get it. It's taken us with The Witcher 3. I remember having these guys in our booth at BioWare behind a black curtain and saying, for everybody that came by, hey, do you want to go see these Polish developers you've never met working on this RPG you've never played, on this franchise you've never heard of? And it was a hard sell. Even with The Witcher 2, when the game came out on PC, you wanted to get people in, but they go, we don't cover PC games. At the same time, they're sitting there going, we should have Game of the Year awards, we should have Game of Show at E3, we should have all this stuff. but you're just not set up for it. Now with The Witcher 3, we've had 25 Game of Show and RPG Show nominations already, and the day's not even over yet. So, and now, we have people lining up out the door to get in. So, and that's taken 8 years. I think a lot of people expect, hey, we have a game that we think is great, and every developer thinks their game is amazing. But if it's not truly amazing, it's not amazing enough to suddenly become this overnight sensation. And you look at a lot of even really well-known studios, look at guys like Riot Games and stuff like that. They did all of that without any PR at all. I mean, they basically, video game media, to them, it's a free-to-play game. I don't even want to cover it. We have that same issue with a lot of browser games. It's just not set up to get PR. IGN doesn't cover browser games. They just don't do it. So don't expect to be there if that's what you're making. You have to have realistic expectations, and you have to be able to trust your PR agency to be good at being able to tell you what is realistic and what's not. And if you're not willing to listen to that feedback, then, so be it. That said, a lot of PR agencies will also just be happy to just take your money and go, okay, that's good.
And what do you think for E3, what is the requirement for the studio to actually invest in going to E3 and showing the game? Where does it begin? A lot of companies say, well, we're going to take up a small booth and show our game, and maybe people will come and look at us, but the reality is people don't care. People are too busy running around. So if you would be advising a studio that maybe has a game coming out in a year or two, what would be your advice? When should they start looking at E3 as a tool?
Well, E3 takes to do E3 properly really takes a huge amount of planning. So it's a show that takes place in June. If you're going to be at E3, you should be thinking about it in January already. You should be getting started on your plans. If you have the money, if you have the budget to be able to build a bigger booth, there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done in terms of designing the booth, figuring out the layout, figuring out, rental equipment, figuring out what you're going to show. And there's just a lot of forethought that needs to go into the actual act of going to E3. But even aside from that, for a lot of developers, I don't know, I'd have a really hard time saying it's worth going to E3, because especially to a show like this, with a game like The Witcher or any AAA game, we can all know what a AAA game is. Those are the games that are, no matter how great every other game is, those are the games that are going to get attention at a show like this. People come here, they have a limited amount of time to see games. They're going to see the biggest games. If you're lucky and you have people that have managed to get you appointments and you've somehow done a lot of work to get appointments with good media, that's great if you're a smaller game. But even so, if that's your one investment, you might spend $50,000, $100,000 on your E3 presence, and that's not an unrealistic figure in terms of traveling your team over to getting your team to LA, booking hotels, transportation, booth costs. You have to pay for someone to walk in and bring your coffee to you. You have to pay. You want to rent a chair for your booth, you're paying $100 for a chair for 3 days that isn't even yours. So there's a lot of costs that come that are involved with that. And beyond that, even once you get those media in, they cover your game. If they're not covering it in a huge way, you're not breaking through all the other noise, right? So you might have the greatest E3 showing ever for an indie developer or for a smaller developer. You're still getting drowned out by Titanfall. You're getting drowned out by Watch Dogs. Every other game that's out there and taking up much more of people's attention. And for a lot of developers, it's probably a better idea to skip E3, do a separate event, or just spend that money on some more creative promotions. Do something, for $50,000, you can do a lot of cool stuff with people on YouTube. You can do a lot of cool stuff with, cosplay communities. You can figure out different ways to invest that money, maybe more intelligently, that will help you kind of spread without having to rely on booking appointment after appointment after appointment. So like with The Witcher 3, we have 50 or 60 people every hour coming through the booth, and we're just jamming jamming them in. I have other developers that have 2 or 3 per hour. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand that there are a lot of media here, but getting them into your booth is a huge challenge. And even once they're there, if you're not ready to totally blow them away, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and the last question from my side would be, is there an interface for a small studio that maybe has 1 or 2 games and that doesn't really have the budget to engage full-time PR agency? Is there still any sense in talking to guys like you and saying, hey, you know, we've got a few $100s a month, we don't need much, but we'd like to start learning, we'd like to get on the map, we'd like to have some sort of a relationship, and we'd like to have a little bit of your time, and is it worth to open the door a little bit like this, and are you equipped to talking to the studios who are not maybe rich right now, but who will have the budget eventually once they learn?
Yeah, you know, I think that it's something that we've learned a lot over the last year, I'd say, where we've sort of really tried to go on, try and work with a lot more sort of smaller studios on sort of really smaller scale campaigns, just to be able to make it work for the budget. And I definitely think there's opportunity there, but on the other hand, PR is such a small part of the overall launch strategy, or, you know, basically the ability to launch a game or get buzz for a game. PR is a small element. You know, if you go to media with a game that they've never heard of from a developer they've never heard of, they may give you the time of day because we have a good relationship with them, right? So that's where having a PR agency that knows these media is a good thing, because we've worked with them for years and years. So we have relationships. So if we have a game that is great, we can talk to them and say, really, I think you should spend your time on this. And hopefully that, you know, our sort of us saying, yes, this is a great game, hopefully gets you in the door. But even so, if you're not working on building a community, if you're not on Facebook, you're not on Twitter, you're not constantly engaging people, you're not making it easy for people to get video, you're not doing all sorts of stuff that you need to, you know, maybe that's paying for advertising, maybe it's whatever. There are so many other things that you need to be doing to actually build up some buzz. You know, if you have a press release, I mean, we went on tour with Larian Studios, we went on a press tour, got them to GameSpot and got them to IGN and got them everywhere. They did previews. Those stories didn't actually have much of an impact overall on awareness, whereas we worked with 3 YouTubers and, you know, moved the Divinity Original Sin like fundraising campaign from 400,000 to 900,000 in the matter of a week. And you know that impact isn't going to necessarily be there from one story. You know, we've had examples of developers that are like, okay, we need an exclusive on IGN, we need front page, we have to be there. We get there, great, there it is, we got 4 visits from that link off of that page, you know, and it's great, because if that audience isn't right, if the website itself isn't pushing it, if they're not pushing it to social media, if they're not really behind it, nobody's going to see it. If, you know, it's, again, you got to think about it. If you're going into a game store, you've never heard of a game before, and you look, I mean, you can look at a package, great. Tell me why I should care about this game. What makes this game special? If, you know, it's the same way as if I send out a press release, and I can do this, you know, developers come to us and say, hey, I need to send out a press release. I can do that. If I send out a press release, I have one chance to get somebody's attention. It's the email headline. I have about 6 words, 8 words to do this. So if you're sending out a press release that says new screenshots for insert game I've never heard of, people go, I don't care, I've never heard of that game, I don't know what you're talking about, so why am I excited?
So if you say like naked chicks and razor blades,
yeah, maybe, you know, maybe that's if that's what your thing is, maybe if your game's about naked chicks, that's probably a good thing to do. I don't know if that's the press that you want, but you know, that's certainly a way to do it, you know. I mean, and the way we've sort of shifted, I'd say, in the last year of learning all of this is really realizing that yes, we can send out a press release for you for $500. Is that going to help you? Maybe, maybe not. what you really need to do is, record some videos, show people your game, especially if you're an unknown developer. Video is the easiest way to get the game in front of your audience. Find people on YouTube, send them your game. Don't be an asshole and like spam media, and if you have a Kickstarter campaign, don't spam media or don't tell your community to tell media to play the game, because that's just going to piss them off and you'll never get covered in the future. So you have to be smart about it, but you have to also enable the community, especially now we're in a situation where it's so easy to have a community built up. It's not easy, I'd say, but there are so many tools to build a community. You have Twitch TV, you have YouTube, you have social media. It's enable those people, enable people who are doing Let's Plays on YouTube. Give them your game. Maybe they won't buy it, maybe they won't cover it. Maybe Total Biscuit and Yogscast and those guys, you send them your game, they don't hear you. But they also get 500 emails a day, so it's okay to say, hey, I sent you an email a couple days ago, did you get it? But at the same time, don't write a 20-paragraph intro, because they're not going to read it. Give them one sentence, say, here's what's awesome about my game and what makes it different from everything else. And if it's interesting enough for them to look at it. If it's not interesting, I think a lot of people need to understand that you may think your game's amazing, but if it's not amazing, then it's not noteworthy. If you're making a game that's sort of mid-range and you go, yes, it's my first game, you might have to accept that you're not going to get on those websites. So aim lower, talk to second-tier websites, guys that get bloggers who have 500 visitors a day. That's still 500 potential people that you can interact with. I use like a brick wall analogy. So you want to build a wall, you can get one person who's a brick, but you need 1,000,000 bricks to build your wall, right? So every person that you talk to one person on Twitter and get them aware of your game, that's one potential person who could be another brick in your wall, right? So just keep at it. You look at a lot of the developers who haven't necessarily relied on traditional media. You look at guys like Clay with some of their games. You look at a lot of the indies. What they do is they're always on YouTube. They're doing streaming video. They're interacting with their community. Guys like the Behemoth and even Double Fine and all those guys. They've done it. Double Fine benefited from a lot of Tim Schafer and some good kind of media attention, but at the end of the day, they were out there working their asses off to get attention. They were talking to people. They were answering questions. If you're not, if you have a Kickstarter campaign and you want to raise $1,000, you need to be doing updates every day. You need to be talking to people all the time. And if you don't, you're missing an opportunity, and you really don't have anyone else but yourself to blame for it.
Okay, cool. And then the last question is, a client like 11-Bit Studios, how long does it normally take when you start working with a pretty young team like this until you get trackable results? Like what studios should be ready to accept when they start working with you for how many, does it take 3 months, 6 months, does it take a year? What should be the...
it really varies greatly, because I think that especially over the last year, again, as I said, so we've been kind of trying these experiments with all sorts of different projects. I mean, games that I would not want to work on, as well as a lot of games that, we look at the game and go, okay, this is amazing. You can immediately say this is a great game. And at the end of the day, the key is making great games. If your game is really good and actually legitimately good and not just my mom says it's good, then it's much easier, because people will watch a video or they will get their hands on the game and they'll go, holy shit, this is actually a really good game. And from there you can start building attention, and like with 11-bit, Anomaly Wars on Earth was a new game. It was a new type of game, and it helped. I mean, if you don't have a good game, like I said, just stop trying. Don't worry about spending your money on PR. Put your money back into your game. If your game sucks, unless you are Activision or someone like that, you will never get the attention that you want, right? So, until you've built up this huge fan base, you can't get away with putting out shit, because until then you need to earn people's respect, you need to earn their attention, you need to earn their reason for giving you money. So if you don't have a good game, don't even bother, just go home and work on your game. if you have a great game, then, I think the results can be almost immediate. You just have to get it into the right hands. It's getting people to look at your game is the hardest part. But if you have a really good game, you just just persevere and just be persistent and just keep following up with people, keep talking to people. Somebody might push you away and say, no, we're not interested because we don't care. Go to somebody else. Somebody will listen and somebody will pay attention, especially now in the social media age. If you can get one person's attention, the right person's attention, you have the potential to blow up. I mean, you get somebody with 1 million followers and a hugely influential, someone who's really influential over their audience. Get somebody like Total Biscuit to be a huge evangelist of your game, and they can drive thousands of dollars of like pre-orders or whatever your way. You just have to get it into their hands, and they might turn you away at first. Try somebody else, try them again. If you didn't get a response, I would take that as a PR person. If I don't hear back from someone to an email, I assume they didn't see my email. So I'll follow up with them and say, if you're not interested, just say so. Just tell me you're not interested and then I can move on. But until then, I have no reason. I'm assuming that my email got lost or it went to a spam filter or something. So just keep at it, and until you hear a no, don't be an asshole, but until you hear a no, it's a maybe, right? So
okay, thanks very much, and hopefully the developers will get more aware of what they can do with the PR agency and what they can do with the good communication between the agency and the studios, and we hope to see some of the guys that listen to this podcast maybe working with you in the future and you helping them get bigger.
I hope so.
Thanks. Hi, what is your name, where do you work, and what's your background?
So my name is Michal Gembicki. It's Michael in English, actually, to make it easier. I work for CDP, which is formerly known as CD Projekt. However, in the part that is doing distribution of the video games, of course, DVD movies as well. I worked there for a little bit more than 7 years already. So quite a long time as for the video game industry, of course.
And by profession, by training, you're coming from what, publishing or sales or development?
Well, actually, by school I studied economy as everyone, which means I don't know anything. I just know that money is good to earn, but also studied informatics in the same time. So let's say in the early, late 80s, I received my first Atari from my father that bought it in Germany, of course, where he was working illegally by that time, to be honest. So I started playing video games on Atari. I bought my first cassette recorder. I thought it would be great to work. Then they sent me to school. They stopped my love to gaming. But then again, unfortunately, by an accident, by accident, I managed to get the job in CDP.
And what do you think in terms of Polish market? What are some of the biggest success stories on the Polish market in terms of games?
Oh, that's a very easy question because it's The Witcher, which is obvious, as for the guy from CD Projekt. But no, it's not boasting. It's true. I mean, the history of video games industry in Poland is around, say, 20 years, and in those 20 years, Witcher was and still is like #1 best-selling PC game there on the market. If you combine, of course, all the two available now and the hype about the third one. From the other titles, I would say we lately published Diablo 3 and the third part, and we sold through around 170,000 copies within less than half a year. So no, this was a shock because it was the first time in my life when I prepared like 90,000 units for day one, and I thought that's about enough, right? At least it's good for 3 months, and it ended up by 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, there was nothing. We were unable to reorder because of the long process of production, and then again it was selling like hell. And until now, 170,000 units and you need to know that the price for the game was for the PC game, for the Diablo 3, was the same as for consoles, so it was really expensive.
What is the normal price that a consumer in Poland expects to pay for, let's say, general PC game like Civ 5 or I don't know, whatever, Witcher 2?
Well, the prices they're a bit higher now than they used to be 2 years ago. It's around 100 zlotys or 120, 130 zlotys, so more or less it's like 35 euro, right? Which is still a little bit less than Western Europe, but probably a little bit higher than East.
In the consoles, in terms of consoles, is this an Xbox market or a PlayStation market?
Nowadays it's pretty much equal. There's around 600,000 PS3s on the market and 600,000 or so Xbox 360. But it's the Xbox was always catching up. So PS was having an advance from the very beginning until Kinect arrived, and then Kinect managed to squeeze in the additional units there and equal the competition. However, if you look at the gamers themselves, I think there's more on Xbox. The more hardcore gamers are on Xbox now.
And in general, PC market, is it growing or not? Is it moving to digital? How is the retail feeling? Because Germans, they say that their retail is still pretty much fine. In Russia, retail is going way down, I think, very fast. And what about Poland?
Well, it was a very dynamically growing market for last, I would say, from 2010, 2009. 2009 was a crisis. Then from 2009 it was really, every year was better than another one. But unfortunately 2012 was the last year and the market stopped there. That's probably, especially on PC side, that's probably because there weren't that many titles in 2012. And there still was a Diablo 3 there, so if you take Diablo 3 out of the equation, that would probably be much bigger, the much lower the value of the market. However, nowadays, let's say it's stable, so it's around 100 million euro worth market there.
Okay, and you're moving to digital yourselves, and how do people purchase? They made the transition to Steam or to local systems?
Well, to be honest, we're very much looking into digital because we have GOG.com, so there's a good example of that you can earn from selling something via internet. Of course, global is something different than our local specifics, and people in Poland, they like downloading, they don't like paying, which they care for solutions like peer-to-peer freedom and that stuff. So it is difficult, but in a way there's no return. I believe that the era of retail is already the retail is already like dying, right? Sooner or later, especially for PC games, there will be no need to buy them boxed, except you're a collector and you want to have some collector unit there. But for regular sales, only digital will be on the market soon. We launched our platform CDP.PL on October. We started only with video games. Nowadays we have their ebooks, comics, novels, and we are just beta testing DVD movies actually there. Everything in download to own model. So you download, you have it on your shelf, and you own it. And this is the model that is very successful for Poland. For example, VOD is not working at all. People don't want to pay for just one view. They want to have a file, to own it, store it, and exchange it.
What about localization? Are games coming out fully localized, or Polish players in general know English well enough not to require localization for some of the less complicated titles?
It's not that good, unfortunately. The knowledge of English in Poland is probably, I've lately heard or read, 18% of society speaks English, which is a bit lower than on average in Europe, I would say.
In Russia, it's 8%.
Okay, so a bit higher then. Anyway, it's still like vast majority of games, I'd say 90% are localized. Out of that, 90% is semi-localization, so text only. That the rest is fully localized, especially kid-titled games or the biggest AAA brands. They are localized fully with voiceovers, and it always is given giving the game additional sales. So it is worth trying there.
And do you believe that localization can change the sales, or it's a cost that you have to have anyway, and you try to minimize the cost? Because what happened in Russia was that there's no correlation between the quality of localization and the sales of the particular game. Maybe in the next chapter will not sell well, but there's no kind of a discussion of who is the best localization studio, and this is the right guys are doing it, so the sales should go up and so on. How does it happen in Poland?
Well, it's always tricky because it's tempting to do, say, not that cost, or say, say cost-effective localization, which means you take people from your office and they pretend they orcs or whatever, and then you say it's the quality is because it's so real that it's almost like real orcs talking. But no, of course I'm kidding. But that's I believe that good localization with good choice of actors give a lot of additional marketing assets, and these marketing assets cause better sales. So there is some, there must be some connection between the two things, and it was always a good feature of CD Projekt, for example. To give you a funny thing, for example, once we were doing, we were publishing a game, distributing game Stalker, the first one, and then we left the original Russian voiceovers there, and we recorded a Polish speaker, but one voice for everything, like it was in the old times with most film movies in TV. So it was like a very cool climate for us, and it was marvelous. I mean, the people were talking about that. Lots of media kept that idea. It really was a good marketing catch.
Awesome. So the future of the Polish market is digital, localized, and with a price that kind of moves towards the Western Europe, but not really that way. And whoever will win by what? Marketing or doing a quality job? What's the future?
Well, the price is the only thing that I'm not sure about, because in terms of digital, the only thing that sells at the moment is promotion. So more or less you can have lots of stuff there, but it moves that from promotion to promotion, and between them sales are null, so nobody buys anything. But if you say it's 70% off, they would say it's okay, but then again you need to cut the price to 80% to make people rush, right? If then they rush, they buy everything, even things they don't want to buy. So you can get the West game, say it's 80% off, and they will buy 100 of units. And if you say it's 50%, they won't buy any units, which is really strange, and we're still learning that actually. So I'm not sure if we will be moving much into the direction of the West within the pricing, because people are price sensitive. But for the other things, yes. So you need to be localized, you need to be good on marketing sites, so address people, attract their to get their attention. What I believe also makes us different than what we're trying to do on the market. We, for example, serve people with very good quality, with high quality support. So, for example, they can pay with Polish currency. We support all the payment systems there. So we help them when something goes wrong, they get the money back. This is giving people security that they are always afraid on the internet. And this is how we compete with, say, key sellers or people that work on eBay, on Allegro, because they never can secure your transaction. We do. If the game doesn't work, you can call us. We have live chat like Amazon has. We have a phone connection. This is the hard way, because people at the beginning, they don't value quality. They would rather go for the low price. But I believe that we need a couple of years to learn, to teach them actually that sometimes it's better to pay that little bit more, but to have the things safe there.
Okay, thanks very much, and we hope things work well for the Polish market, and we'll see when whether Russian or Polish makes the transaction first to fully digital.
Yeah, let's see into that. Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, thank you. Hi, what is your name and where do you work and what do you do?
My name is Rui Costa. I work in Porto Editora. Porto Editora is the biggest publishing company in Portugal. I am the director of the games division that is called Play Games.
And since which year are you in the games industry?
Oh, I don't have the faintest idea. From the times of VCTS.
What was the year when I saw you drinking a bottle of vodka in London?
19... what could be? 1997 perhaps. Yeah.
Okay.
Good old days.
So you're in the games industry at least 16 years.
Yes, at least. Yeah.
And how did the Portuguese games market change in that time?
Well, I wouldn't recognize it. Completely changed. I remember when we were only box movers, there was Sony that made a very nice job, and then you have a lot of people, but I think we were amateurs. It changed, dramatically changed. It went up, and now it went very down.
And would you say that the market is right now a PC market or a console market?
No, in Portugal it's console market. The PC market in Portugal, it's mainly owned by piracy. So people, they unfortunately don't buy games. They download it.
And what is the most popular genre? Sports?
Sports and shooters.
So things like Call of Duty?
Call of Duty, yes, very strong. GT driving license also very strong.
And is it PlayStation over Xbox or Xbox over PlayStation?
Definitely PlayStation, but with a huge difference.
And do publishers and developers do the localize into Portuguese, or people play English or Spanish?
Well, you know, it's curious because we were the first company to localize a game. So first then Sony's, then everything else. I remember we localized, I think it was Rage of Mage, something that it was incredibly old, and it was our first Portuguese title.
Rage of Mages.
Yeah, imagine.
You know that this is a Russian developed game.
I know. That's why I'm pointing it out.
Okay, so the first game that was localized into Portuguese was developed in Moscow.
Yeah, exactly. That's very nice.
Fuck me, okay. And people still localize, like
no. After we start localizing, we made a strong effort with some French companies at that time, and we start localizing special adventure games, and it has to be in Portuguese. And it was extraordinary to see that, for instance, games like Pokemon was played in English, so that there was no Portuguese version. It was very strange to me, a game that at that time sold 100,000 copies and meant to be played by children, and it was not in Portuguese. So we started an effort doing localization. Unfortunately, at that time, it hasn't had the mass impact that we expected it would have, because core gamers they play in English, and they still play in English.
And people in general, they speak English or not?
Yeah. In Portugal you will find people speaking English and French, so especially English is quite easy.
Okay, so there's no barrier between people and then the games that they play?
No, but for kids, of course, yes. That's why it's the importance of localizing game for kids. And now, in the last few years, Sony has made an effort also to localize games, and that also gave them more adoptions of their games.
What about digital and retail? Is digital big? Is it growing bigger? And is it digital paid or digital pirated?
Well, digital paid is going bigger, of course. Digital pirates even bigger. With the crisis, money is missing for food, so people, they still want to play and they download games, unfortunately.
Okay, and how do you see the next 2 years? I mean, what's in the future? Consoles will continue to dominate the market?
In Portugal, yes. Portugal at this time it's mainly a console market. The market has been shrinking a lot. Okay, you will see in the last 3 years 50% reduction of the market, and you see retailers like Fnac reducing their shelf space. You see game closing doors. You see a lot of companies going bankrupt because unfortunately, it's not going very well.
Okay, and the last question is PlayStation 4 over Xbox One or Xbox One over PlayStation 4?
I would say in Portugal, definitely PlayStation over Xbox.
Okay. Because of the price or because of what?
Well, I would say especially because of the people working on both companies. I would say that PlayStation has a much more dynamic and experienced team, and I unfortunately think that Xbox and Microsoft never put the effort to make the console succeed, at least not in Portugal.
Okay. So let's hope that things work better in Portugal, and maybe the market goes back through the digital.
I think that market will grow and will keep growing. I don't think that people are playing less. By the contrary, people are playing more. Unfortunately, they are not paying more. Okay,
so it's a question of finding the right channel,
the right model, the right pricing.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you to you, my friend. It was a pleasure.